For those of you that it is your first time to come to the table, or at least to come in a little while, we have been going through a theme that is called What Love Looks Like. And we're talking about different difficult seasons or things that we have to go through in life that are challenging, and hearing from different people from our church community that have had to walk through those things to kind of gain some understanding of what it's like to walk through that, what they learned about God, things to say or not to say, and just trying to help us have compassion for the people that are having to walk those things, have understanding, and giving us tools on how we can love and serve them well as they walk through those challenging things. So tonight we are going to do that, but I just want to tell you, in October, on Saturday, October 22nd from 9 to 1, we're actually going to have a special Come to the Table event. And it's going to be called What Love Looks Like When Homosexuality Hits Home. And no matter what your feelings or opinions are about that topic, no matter whether you're 13 or 85, no matter whether you're heterosexual or struggle with same-sex attraction, there's going to be a place for you here. And I'm just asking you to save the date. This is a topic that I feel like we as the church, not necessarily just CCF, but the church in general, has not known how to respond. And we haven't done a very good job at loving our neighbor. And we want to try to talk about that difficult topic and provide resources for you, and just talk about how should we respond as a church, and how do we love but yet still have boundaries, and what do I say to my child or my friend who has same-sex attraction. And we're just going to talk about some of that stuff. So I encourage you all to come, invite someone that you know that discussion might help them. We're going to have some special guest speakers, but also we're going to have a panel of people who have had to walk through that in different situations in relationship to people with same-sex attraction. So I just think it will be a good opportunity for all of you to understand a little bit more and equip you for whatever road, whatever neighbor God may have you to love. So tonight, our topic,
what was the date?
Saturday, October 22nd.
At what time?
9 to 1, it will include lunch, and we will be having more information and registration information coming soon.
Will that be here at the church?
Yep. Yep. And depending on how many people we have, where we'll meet. But yeah, anyway. But tonight, we are going to hear from some very special people. Our topic is what love looks like in the middle of grief and loss. And so I've asked Chris James if she would lead the panel discussion for tonight. Do you want to come? And you can introduce your panel. And just as they're coming, you guys, I feel very humbled in coordinating. I understand that when we are asking people to share their testimonies, that it's a very vulnerable place to put them. And so I just want to show them respect and give them honor, because it is very humbling and honoring to be able to be in a place where they're willing to share their stories and trust us with that. So I'll let Chris take over from here.
Thank you for coming. I've asked Jeannette, Oakley, is that correct? Oakley. And Cameo, Yeater-Socha, to share with us tonight. Would you just extend your hands this way and let's pray for them right quick, because as Stephanie said, I just want Holy Spirit to be in charge tonight, and just thank you for sharing your heart with us and being vulnerable. So God, we just pray for Jeannette and Cameo that you would help them to know what to say and how to say it. Help them to remember they're in the midst of family, that we love them, and help them to give glory to you, but also just be honest about how it feels to walk through loss and grief. Thank you for them, Lord, and just bless them tonight in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Would you go ahead and share first, Candy? Or do you want to go second?
No, I'll go first.
I mean, if there's some way I can help you with this or something.
All right. So I know a lot of you, but some of you, this higher? Okay. Some of you I don't know, but my name is Cameo Yeater-Socha, and I'm sharing from the perspective of losing my husband. And it's a kind of, how long do we have? Okay, good. So it's a little bit different than some other widows because my husband, Porter, was in the military and he'd been activated a lot of different times. And so we had lots of chances to talk through what if, what if something happens, can I sell your motorcycle? What does, do I have to stay in Ohio? We lived in Ohio. So I asked a lot of what ifs, and he'd been activated several times, so there was a lot of times I asked a lot of what ifs. Can I do this? How do you feel about that? So one of the things that he had said was for me to find, if anything happened, like a group of people that would help me be able to live life out with our children. We we have 3 children. And so I just kind of want to, I'm going to break this up kind of into 3 different sections of where my journey started, in the middle, and kind of where it has kind of moved to. So after Porter passed away, and I've got people praying for me, so I'm not going to cry. After he had passed away, there was so many people that were there. They showed up with food. They showed up with gifts. They just showed up for me and my family. And it was great. That's what love felt like. And for months they showed up. But then after a while, people just disappeared. And they just weren't there. And they were out eating ice cream and acting like, nothing was wrong, nothing had happened. And I see them and they were all happy. And I wanted to be like, don't you realize, don't you see? My husband's gone, my kid's dad's not here to take him to soccer. And it was really hard. And I was angry at times because I was like, how can they just go out for ice cream and act like nothing's wrong? How can they be so happy when we're really struggling? We're really having a hard time. It was sad. And my boys were sad, I was sad, it was just all the way around. It was just, grief was just messy. And it's just hard. And so I kind of just, you hear about being angry and you hear about going through the different stages and everything. And I just had to just keep walking through it. But it was hard because I'm not really an angry person. I'm usually really happy. And so there was such a conflict within myself because I was angry. And I was like, how can people actually really be happy? And going out and doing things. And when I'm here and I'm not, and why can they do that? And why do they still have their spouses when I don't? And all these things that Satan just kept coming in, and he just kept saying to me and over, and I finally just had to kind of just walk through that. And what love looks like, and I'm going to say this at the end, when I say about people going out and getting ice cream. And I want to come back to this at the end. But then somewhere, probably, he's been gone, Porter's been gone for almost 14 years. So it's been quite a while. And so I kind of moved into a second phase of my journey where I just had to trust God. And I couldn't look at what other people were doing. I couldn't look at their walk. I couldn't see what they were doing. I had to just keep focusing on the good things, the right things, what God wanted for me, what God wanted for our family. And I focused a lot on the verse Romans 8:28. I mean, I just had to keep going back to that verse. And I swear, I could have walked around the United States as many times as what I had to go back to that verse. That in all things, God works for the good. You know, and so I wrestled with that a lot. That in all things, He works for the good. Even when I lost quarter. Even when it was hard sitting at school concerts by yourself. You know, we grew up in a real small town in Ohio. We graduated high school together. My parents, myself, our kids all went to the same school. We had so it was a really small area. And it was just really hard. But I had to keep going back to that in all things, God works for the good. And I had to trust Him that no matter what was going on, you know, I couldn't look to the left, I couldn't look to the right. I had to just keep focusing on the good. And my perspective from being sad that it wasn't what I thought my life was going to look like, because it wasn't. It's still, honestly, my life still does not, to be honest, it doesn't look like what I thought it was going to look like. I mean, I grew up in a family business. I thought that's what I was going to do my entire life. I thought I was going to be married to Porter my entire life. It doesn't look anything like what I thought it was going to look like. And I have to go back to that in all things, God works for the good. And I can't focus on the left, the right. I just have to keep walking the steps ahead of me. And that's what I did. And I had to create a new life. And so, for some of you that know people that are going through grief, whatever form it is, maybe they've lost their dog, maybe they've lost their house, going to the third, I would say, phase, and where I'm at now, I mean, yes, my life does not look like what I thought it was going to look like. But I got remarried, and I married a wonderful man named Dennis. He's great. He fits me perfectly. He understands, you know, that some days are easier than other days, and that some days out of the blue, it's like, wow. You know, we were talking about this earlier, that some days everything's great, and then all of a sudden something hits you, and you just fall apart. You know, you just are just walking in, and you're just literally falling apart. And you have to be okay with that. And so in kind of like what I say, like where I'm at, my third area or phase or journey or whatever, is that we choose, and I choose, to go out and love others. That I'm going to be the type of person that's going to go out and I'm going to go have ice cream, but I'm going to ask somebody that I know that's going through a hard time. If they're depressed, if they're sad, if I see a need, somebody needs food, I'm going to cook you food. If you need something, I'm going to be there and support you and do what I can every step of the way. There's not a thing I won't do if I see somebody in need. Because I know what it feels like to receive love. I know what it feels like to be heartbroken. I know what it feels like when others are going to get ice cream and I'm not there. And so if I can go and make a difference in somebody's life and help them or be there for them or support them or be their friend or smile, you know, for goodness sakes, if we can just smile at people, I mean, seriously, what difference is it going to make? It's a huge difference. And so in all things, God works for the good. And so I challenge you guys to go out and make a difference. And if you see somebody who's down, you see somebody who's going through something, just smile at them. Just be there for them a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 6 years. Just show up for people. Because that is the greatest commandment that God has told us, is that we love one another. We don't love people conditionally. We love them unconditionally, no matter where they're at. Whatever they're walking through, we just show up and just love people. And so I'm going to be the type of person that's going to go out for ice cream and invite somebody else.
Hi, my name is Jeannette, and I have a different kind of story. My daughter Lori called me one day, and she had been married for 13 years, and she said, "Mom, I need to tell you something, but I'd really like to tell you and Daddy together." So I said, "Okay, why don't we have lunch together, and we'll talk." And I just had this feeling that it was bad, because she had never done this. She had never shown me any sign at all that they were unhappy in their marriage. And in our family, people didn't get divorced. Well, her older sister had gotten divorced, and now Lori was going to be the second one, I thought. So the next day came, and we met her, and we had lunch. We heard horrible stories. Lori had been married, as I said, for it would have been 13 years on the Monday after she left him on Friday. And she had been verbally, physically, and sexually abused from the very beginning. But she was so ashamed of it. She didn't want to share it with me. She felt like it was her fault, that there was something she did or didn't do. And it's the same old story. You always hear how they deserve it. And she told her daddy that she knew the Lord didn't like divorce. And she said, "Daddy, I don't want to divorce him, but I don't see how I can live and have a life and not leave him." So her daddy and I said, "Well, just come home for a while, and maybe we can get some counseling for you and see how things go." Well, she came home, but he wanted no part of that. He denied everything, and that's neither here nor there. But they finally did get a divorce. And she went on and did really well, made a life for herself. She was a very strong Christian. And I think that was part of the hurt and even shame that she did not have the marriage she saw her daddy and I had. Now, we're not perfect. It was pretty close in her eyes. You want your kids to think that everything's flowers and roses and smiles and stolen kisses where they just happen to see, But she was doing well, and she went to have a physical because Lori had been born with a heart defect. And the heart defect had gotten worse. And she had a physical, and the doctor said, "I really think that you need to see another cardiologist who is a surgeon and is one that's a specialist in the type of problems that you have with your heart." When she was born, she had the top 2 chambers of her heart they weren't finished, they weren't developed. Well, that they were able to repair when she was 13 weeks old. But we moved forward now to where she's 45. And she sees this doctor in the summer of 2019. And this doctor convinced her that she was sure that she could fix her heart and that it would improve her life. She wouldn't have asthma anymore and all these things. So Lori decided, okay, I think I'll go for it. Well, then we get home fear moves in. She said, Mama, I don't want to do that. I said, but Lori, I go on this whole campaign. You know, you really need to do this. You'll be happier. You'll be healthy for once. And I think you'll be very happy. Well, she wasn't agreeing with me, and I kept pushing. Finally, she says, okay, Mother, I think you're right. I prayed about it. I fasted. I've talked to the Lord about it, and I think that is what I'm supposed to do. So we called the doctor back, and she got scheduled for her surgery on January 7th of 2020. So we had to be there real early in the morning. But the night before, she, for some reason, wanted to talk about the what if factor. You know? And I said, no, I don't want to do this. And she said, no, Mother, you need to sit down and be a big girl about this and listen. And she says, here's pen and paper. I want you to write down what I'm telling you. She says, you know my handwriting's not good, and nobody would ever be able to read it, and you wouldn't know what I said. So I want you to write it down. So I quickly handed it to her daddy. Gary, you do this. You can print better than me. You do it. So he started. And we talked about if she should pass, that she wanted to be cremated because she knew she only had enough money in her account probably to take care of that. She didn't want Mom and Dad paying for it. And she wanted certain things to go to certain friends. And she said, I've already labeled those. Everything in my room, I have labeled as to who it's given to. And we said, okay. And she said, I don't want a memorial service. I don't want a funeral at the church. I don't want all that crying and weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. I said, really? Gnashing of teeth? Lori, you think they're... Well, they might. Some of my drama friends might, you know. And I said, oh, okay, you know. So what she wanted was for us to have a party at our house. And we said, okay. And I mean a party. She wanted cake, ice cream, and she wanted everything to be pink, because that was her favorite color. And everybody that knew Lori knew that. So the next morning we get up at 3 in the morning, and we head for the medical center in Houston. And she went in at 10 after 6. It went on and went on and on. And you get these little phone calls that are saying, everything's fine, everything's progressive as planned. And in your heart you're thinking, I don't believe this. This is 13 hours in and we haven't changed anything. So finally, 14 and a half hours in, I get a phone call from the surgeon, and she said, if you'll notice to your left of the room that you're in, it says family. I said, yes, I see it. She said, I want you and your husband to meet me in there. I said, okay, is my daughter alive? She said, just meet me in there. So I grabbed Mary and I said, come on, let's go find out what's happened. So we get in there. She sits down with us, and she says, things were much worse than what we had expected. And I said, okay, what? What did you not expect? She says she has one lung is about half full of blood, and 2 of her valves are not working and need to be replaced. And the other lung, she's going to have a transplant. It's going to have to go. And in the middle, smack in the middle of her heart, all 4 chambers, was a huge hole the size of a quarter. So I said, what do we do? She said, well, we've done all we can do for today because I'm exhausted and so is my team. So she's in ICU now, and I know she didn't want this, but she's on a ventilator. Well, Lori had signed all the paperwork that she was not under any circumstances to be resuscitated, nothing like that, okay? So I asked her about that. I said, are you keeping her alive that way? She said, oh no, this is only to make it easier for her. I said, okay. So about 2 hours later, which was 10 o'clock at night, she said, okay, we're going to have her in the ICU cardiac unit. And it's not like an ICU where you go in, everybody's in a bed. They're in a room. and it's got glass doors, and they have a circle in the middle with all the nurses and doctors. So she said, you can go in there. Well, I went in, and Lori was on this ventilator. And it was all I could do to hold my composure, because she was looking at me with such fright, and her eyes were just frantic. Well, she had made me promise her that wouldn't happen. So I said, Lori, if you can hear me, honey, you're not dying. This is just to keep you more calm, and they're about to give you some medicine, and you're not going to be aware of this. Well, while I told her that, she looked at me, and I could tell how she slowed down the blinking and the struggling. She understood. I said, it's going to go away, so just calm down. I'll keep my promise, and so will your daddy. So she went to sleep. In a little while, she started it all over again. I freaked out. I got my purse. I had a credit card in my hand. I was running through there like a nut. And I said, anybody that'll take her off of this thing, you can max this card out. I don't care. Somebody get my baby off of this. And here comes the head of the department. He says, you need to sit down. We have to do this. And you've got to calm down. Maybe I should give you something. I said, no, I don't want nothing from you. And so I went out into the waiting area. I got my Bible, and I sat down and prayed. And I said, Lord, I'm sorry. I reacted to the spirit of fear. I know what I've done. I should have called upon your name, and I didn't, and I'm sorry. So now I am. Will you please help me through this? So morning came, and Gary got back up there because they'd only let one stay. And so he went in with her, and I had the meeting with the doctor. And so she says, Lori now has AFib on top of all of this, which, if you don't know what that is, it means the heart's chambers not necessarily working together. And she went in from heart block, where each chamber did its own thing, to where two would work together. And one would do its own thing. So they got that stabilized. They thought, well, they decided they were going to shock her heart, and that would do it. So we said, okay. And we sat out in the hallway. And Gary went down to get us something to drink, and here they come out. The surgeon herself came out. She said, Mrs. Oakley, I need you to come with me right away. I said, what's wrong? Is she gone? No, she's not. Just come in here. Well, they had done tried to bring her heart back into sinus rhythm 3 times. Out of 3 of those times, 2 times her heart completely stopped for just a few minutes, and then she'd come back. When she'd come back, she'd say, no, I want to go back. Mimi, Sarah, I want to go back. Why did you bring me back? Well, my mother had died several years before, and she was seeing my mother. The last time they did it, she came back and she said, okay, I just need to talk to my mom. Go get my mom. Just please go get my mom. Well, she was hysterical. I could hear her screaming. And boy, I got in there as quick as I could. And I said, Lori, what happened? What's going on? And she just crying. Mom, I saw Mimi. I was in heaven. And these people brought me back. But they were not supposed to. You promised. And I said, honey, I don't know what happened. I'll find out. I said, what did Mimi say? And she said, Mimi said, I had to come back for just a little bit. Now remember, this is a woman that's 44. She's acting like she's a little girl. She's so happy, but yet she's scared. And she says, Mimi said she's coming back for me in just a little bit. I know Mimi will, because she never told a lie. And she always did what she told me she would do. So I said, okay. Well, I was just in shock. I didn't know what to say. So they gave her something, and she went to sleep. We had a whole night. The next day, they had gotten her heart where it had become steady. And they said, if she stays this way throughout today, she can go home tonight. Can you believe that? You were in ICU, you had surgery, and you're going to go home the next day? Okay, I was glad to hear it. Paying $17 a day to park. I was glad to go home. You know? So the next day I came, and wouldn't you know, she's not doing that great. And she kept saying, Mother, they said I can go home. Why am I not going home? I said, well, honey, the day's early yet. It's only 5. in the morning? I said, no, it's 5 p.m. I'm not going home. I'm not. So they came in and tested her, or not test, but they had to listen to her heartbeat. Her heartbeat was doing fine. So yes, they were going to let her go home. So they did all the paperwork, and about 10 to 7, they had her packed up and ready to go. And we had it scheduled to come back, and we were going to do probably the transplant and everything that they said, but she had to heal up. She had her collarbone, all of this sawed all the way down, and she had been opened up. So they told me, whatever you do not let her raise her arms above her elbows like this. I said, okay, I'll try. So they got her ready. They get her in this little wheelchair thing that has this cart on it, and it had balloons and her flowers and everything. Well, Lori goes out there. You'd think she was in a parade. Bye, y'all. I'm leaving. And you know what? I am never coming back. And she was doing this bye, bye to everybody. And she was just as happy to get out there as she could be. And so we went home. She had her dinner, and her dad and I were in there talking to her, and in a little while it was time to go to bed. So at 9 o'clock, her dad and I went in the room with her, and she had a TV room, and then she had a bedroom. Well, the TV room had a big lazy boy recliner in it, and the doctors had already told us that's where she was going to have to sleep. So we were okay with that. She was fine with it. She did have time anyway, watching TV. So we got her in there, got her all settled, and we prayed as a family. Her dad and I prayed, and she said, let me pray now. And she prayed and told the Lord how grateful she was for her life, that He was her Savior and her Lord, and for all the healing He had done, that all her tears were behind her because of the divorce. Thank you for forgiving me, and I thank you for Mom and Dad. I love you, Lord Jesus. And then she just went off in her prayer language for just a few minutes, and she kept saying, I love you, Jesus, and thank you for Mom and Dad. So her daddy and I kissed her, put her to bed. She told us both she loved us. And we all went to bed. The house was quiet. I slept in the guest room across from her room, and Gary was on the other side of the house in our room, where she was asleep in the chair. And I got up a whole bunch of times and looked, make sure everything was fine. I get in bed, have the dog up on the bed with me. Everything's fine, so I go to sleep. About 3:15, I hear this, sounds like a strum of a guitar. And I thought, what is that? Is she out playing video games? What's that noise? So I got up. I realized it was her phone, and it was an alarm going off. And it was the alarm probably from when we went to the hospital, because we had to get up at 3. Well, I turned the hall light on, and there on the floor she is. Her head was on the carpet in her bedroom, so she was in the doorway in the hallway. But the strange thing was, she was laying straight out. I couldn't see anything but her head. And she had this white throw that said something about I'm beautiful, and had the eyelashes, And it was all straight, no wrinkles, perfectly straight. Well, I couldn't get to her, so I had to go through her bedroom and around through the TV room, and I see the lazy boy is laying on its side. There's no way Lori could have knocked that over. It's not possible. I couldn't even pick the thing up to get to her. So I got around there, and I kept saying, Lori, Lori. Well, when I got down there and I could see her face, I knew she was gone. She was blue, and when I touched her face, she was like ice. And of course, I just cried, and I sat there and held her hand. Our dog, Wyatt, came and laid next to her, put his head over on her shoulder, and that dog did not move at all. And I finally realized, I don't know how much time had gone by, so I ran in the other part of the house where Gary was. And I ran in that room, and I regret that I did this. But I ran in the room, and I said, Gary, get up. Lori's dead. I think she's dead. Please come and help me. Well, he just took off like a shot. And he's screaming, Lori, Lori. And he said, Jesus, help, help, Jesus. And he got in there, and he got down on his hands and knees. And he says, baby girl, can you hear me? And he had his mouth right up to her ear. Lori, Lori, can you hear me? I said, honey, she's gone. She can't hear you. And he just let out the most horrible wail you've ever heard in your life. So he stayed with her, and I went in the other room, and I looked at the clock, and I thought, it's been over an hour. I've got to call 911 or somebody. So I called 911, and I told him, I said, look, my daughter has passed. She's had surgery, and she's passed from that. And well, within seconds, it seemed like I heard an ambulance and all this, and here all these guys come. Well, they walk in there, and they took one look at, yeah, she's gone. I said, I told them all that. I mean, you know. So they called the sheriff and the coroner and all that. And Gary did not leave her. He stayed right there, and the dog too. So I went into the kitchen with the sheriff and the coroner, and I gave him the phone number to the doctor that had done the surgery. She was a lovely Asian woman and very, just as sweet as she could be, very kind, sympathetic and everything. And he was talking to her, and he says to her, okay, just a moment. And he puts the phone up to his chest, and he says, she's demanding to speak to you. I said, okay, I have no issue with that. So I get on the phone, I said, yes, doctor, and I tell y'all I cannot remember her name. But anyway, all I could hear was crying. Matched the crying my husband was having in the other room. And she says, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. I was so sure I could fix it. I've studied this for years. I've done others, but Dolores didn't work, and I'm so sorry. And she says, are you mad at me? I said, no, I'm not mad at you. It was her time to go. The Lord came and took Lori home. It's all right. It's okay. I have nothing against you. It's fine. And so I said, I'm going to give you back to the sheriff because I can't do any more right now. So I handed the phone back to him. Well, the sheriff, after the coroner left, and he said, yes, everything's fine, and she's going to sign the papers. We'll have no issue, no investigation or anything like that. So we had 3 sheriffs. What I neglected to tell you was we have an older daughter named Christy. And I called her and I said, honey, I'm sorry to tell you, but your sister's passed. Silence on the other end of the phone. I said, do you want to come tell her goodbye? And she said, I'm on my way. So we kept waiting. She didn't get here. Well, she missed her turn off because she was so upset. Well, by the time she got there, we had 3 sheriffs. We had one for each of us. And they stayed with us and held our hands, put their arms around us, whatever. And one guy finally told Gary, sir, you really should get up. Don't you think you should get up? Gary says, no, I'm not leaving her till I have to. So he stayed there. Well, we had called in the funeral home. It was going to be 2 hours, maybe, before they came. So what do you do? You know? So I went there, I sat by the floor with Gary, and we prayed and thanked the Lord for her. What a blessing and a delight and a joy. Nobody laughed like that girl. You could hear her all over the house. She brought such joy to our lives. So finally, the people came to take Lori. And they came in, and the guy looked like some mafia guy from the funeral home. I thought he was from the funeral home. And he says, oh no, we have a holding facility. I said, what does that mean? He said, well, it's a big warehouse, and we'll tag her toe. She'll have a number. And I said, that's more than I need to know. Just do what you have to do. So I peeked in to see what he had to do. They wrapped her up, and I said, wait, I want you to take that blanket that she was wrapped in, and I want you to wrap her in that. So they did. So she comes out looking like a little baby, wrapped in this little white blanket, and I can see her face. Y'all, she had the most calm look about her, and she was smiling. She still had a little bit of color, but she was color. So anyway, they take her out, and they load her in the car, the thing. The hearse doesn't come. It's this little SUV, and Lori was little, so it was okay. So she fit. And they drove, and we 3 watched until she was out of sight. Well, then we fell apart. Those 3 sheriffs, wasn't their first rodeo. They knew what was going to happen. So one took Gary, one took me, and one took Christy. They were behind us. And of course, we were locked arms as a family crying. And they were right there with us. And they said, will you be okay? We're going to have to leave. And we said, yeah, we'll be fine. And we were. So the day progresses, and you have to make arrangements. So Christy is a female version of her daddy. Very organized, very matter-of-fact about what has to be done next. Gary's an engineer, so she's in that too. So anyway, so they got the funeral home thing all taken care of, and at 2 o'clock we were supposed to go and take care of the arrangements. While we're there, the phone rings, and I answer it. It's the surgeon, the lady I talked to earlier, the doctor, and she says, Miss Oakley, I need to speak with you today. I said, why? What's wrong? She says, I'm not going to be able to sleep. I can't rest until I have some answers. And I said, okay. You want to come this evening? She says, yes. I'll be there by 7. I said, okay. So I go back, we finish, we go home. And before you know it, it's 7 o'clock. This lady's ringing the doorbell. So I let her in, and she took her shoes off, and she came into the great room, and we sat down. And she said, can you tell me what happened? I said, I thought you were going to tell me what happened. And she says, well, just tell me how you found her and things like that. So I did. And she wanted to see the room. I took her in there. We did all that. So she was fine with what I told her. And again, she starts crying, telling me she's sorry. I said, look, it's okay. You don't have to go through this. We've forgiven you. It's not your fault. She says, I have heard so many stories over the years of these people like your daughter that saw her grandmother, because I'd explained to her it was her grandmother. And Mother had said a little bit, so I guess to this doctor a little bit was 2 days. So anyway, she says, I want to know what it is. I said, Lori had Jesus in her heart. I have Jesus in my heart, so does my husband. She says, I need to know who this Jesus is. So we began to tell her. And this is where Gary came in, and he helped her with that. And I asked her, could I pray with her? And she said, please, please. And she had tears. We had a big box of Kleenex by that time. And Gary prayed with her, and I prayed with her. That lady walked out there, out of our home, different than she came in. She was relieved, and she was part of the family of God by that time. And she couldn't thank us enough. Well, the other thing I neglected to tell you was all through the day, we had nurses and different ones that called to say it was such a joy to take care of your daughter. And she would always ask us, was everything okay in your life? Do you need prayer? Here's Lori trying to recover from this, but she'd worry about everybody else. And so, anyway, the next thing to do was the memorial, or the party, as she said. So we did what she asked. We had a party on Saturday night at our house. The yard was decked out in pink balloons as she had instructed. And all the neighbors that came, friends, wore pink. And we had a nice time together. And that was over. It lasted a couple hours, and everybody went home. So 2 weeks after that, we came to Wills Point, to Hiram Community, to the church where Gary grew up. And that's what Lori wanted, for us to come up and thank Locust Grove Community Church for praying for her faithfully ever since she had been born. And she had said, if I don't make it through this, I want you to go back and tell them I so appreciate their prayers. And it meant a lot to me. So we kept our promise. They gave us the morning service. The place was packed. It only seated 50, but in all the years Gary had been there, he said, I've never seen this many people in the church. And he was thrilled beyond measure, and so was I. And we just pretty much gave him a real quick story of what had happened. But the main thing Lori wanted them to know was that your prayers mattered. Even though she had passed, she was healed completely. Never going to have to go through any of that again. No more inhalers. None of that stuff. And it was easier to let her go like that. Gary's dad was 83 at the time, and as far as we knew, he had never committed his life to the Lord. Gary asked everyone in the church, he said, if you've never given your life to the Lord, or you just need a refreshing time with the Lord, please come and let Jeannette and I pray for you, and the pastor. And Gary's daddy was the first one up. Here he comes. Then came a cousin and more friends of the family. So yes, we lost our daughter to heaven. We didn't lose her. She just changed places, you know. And all that was wonderful. Everything was great. We were so happy that because of Lori passing, others were now going to be in the kingdom. Now, this is much like what you went through. 2 or 3 weeks, a month goes by. Everybody else's life goes on. Yours does not. You're in the house where she passed. You vacuum that spot. And you think, no, this can't be real. Surely all that was a dream, and it's not. Days and weeks go by. Then one day, the Holy Spirit asked me, Jeannette, where is your faith? You've not talked to me since this has happened. Are you angry? And I said, well, maybe just a little bit. To be honest, I was disappointed. I loved my daughter, and she had been home for 4 years to the day she passed. And I had enjoyed her being with me and all that, and I missed her. But I said, Lord, I'm sorry if I came across to you. Look at me, make an excuse. The Lord knows our heart, and I'm trying to tell him what he probably saw. Anyway, I gave myself. I just told him how I felt, and I'm sorry if these things are wrong to say to you. But you know, the Lord reached down in his mercy and goodness, touched my heart, and he really healed me of the grieving. Gary and I decided that we need to leave that place. That was COVID was cranking it up then. He was working from home. Well, then when he was home every day, and he was walking through there, he soon began to feel like I did. This is hard. Maybe we should sell this house. I said, yeah, I've been saying that a long time. So finally, Lori had passed in January, and by March, Gary was ready to go. So we put the house up to sell. It didn't sell until June, I think it was, or July. It doesn't matter. Anyway, we got here. We got to State Hwy. And the first Sunday of 2021, we came here. We knew immediately this was where the Lord would have us. Y'all opened your arms to us. You didn't know what had gone through, what we'd passed through. But you loved us, you welcomed us into your family. And that was the final thing for us. And we really moved forward. We knew it was time for us to get involved. We always had been. So it was time to get back on the horse and ride, so to speak, okay? We put her where she should be, and our hearts had been healed. We made new friends. You know who you are, who are so special to us, and we're making more new ones all of the time. And I'm grateful to the Lord Jesus most of all. So, my journey through loss and grief was a journey. I'm sure it's not over yet, but that portion of losing that one, and it's not loss, of her graduating on, her coronation, you know, has gone on. So thank you for letting me share with you what I went through.
Can we just thank them one more time for sharing? We need to wrap up pretty quick. A lot of the grief that I've walked through personally is more of grief of losing relationships. And I know that we've all been through a lot of loss and grief through the last couple of years at least, if not longer. I don't really know a family that's not struggling with people being sideways with each other or differing opinions of, and views of things. And so I know I'm not the only one that has several broken relationships, or one main broken relationship in my life. And that's the grief I'm going through. I know you guys are going through a lot of grief. And really, like the one that I think of is my miscarriage. I just didn't want to be around anyone. I didn't want anyone calling me, or I just wanted to be by myself. And that's a whole nother story. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, what does love look like? It looks like listening to the Holy Spirit and obeying Him. Because you don't know if someone wants to be left alone, or if you want your space invaded by every person that can come over. You don't really know sometimes what love looks like. But the Holy Spirit knows what's going to minister to people. And so just be faithful in your little part. And I'm just grateful they were willing to be vulnerable and share their hearts with us. Also, I just want to, if Stephanie's okay with this, I just want to encourage you to maybe, I know we don't have enough time, but just to hunker down a little bit, and if you need prayer for grief and loss, just be honest. Let's pray for each other. It doesn't take very long to pray for someone. So if you need prayer for grief and loss, please take advantage of tonight. You've got sisters that love you, and that's the least we can do. Like, I love what Cameo says, because she is just like the poster child for, oh my gosh, what can I do? And the least we can do is pray for each other, right? So let's do that for each other tonight before we leave. I'm just so happy you're all here. Let's take advantage of it.